I'd like to, maybe this is an annoying question, but I think it's worth discussing that. So when it comes to explaining what naturalism is in terms of a natural entity, right? One could sort of allege that this is just kicking the can down the road, and really you should you should explain what the natural entity, what's that supposed to be, right? So I've seen different approaches to that question. I've seen people just say that, well, here's a few examples of a natural thing, right? This table is natural, this microphone is natural, this shirt is natural, and so on. But maybe, well, these are just a few examples, and I'm wondering whether we should even attempt to define what that is supposed to be. I mean, we need some sort of distinguishing factor, or maybe we need to just not sure what's the right approach here. So maybe I'll just pose it to you. What is a natural entity?
Right. So sometimes the way that I do this is you want to have a contrast class as well. So if there were perhaps terms possible, but if there were these other kinds of things, they wouldn't be natural, and contrast them with the things that are natural. And then you've got two lists. If you give people a bunch of names of things and say sort them, they all sort them the same way. So it makes it look as though you don't really need a definition. It looks as though people's capacity to sort these things is really latching onto something, a kind of real distinction. So
maybe
but that might not be right. I think it is. I mean, one of the things to say in response to people who want definitions is that the whole kind of analytic project of 20th century philosophy, defining things like knowledge and causation and works of art and so on, was very unhappy. Nobody ever came up with an acceptable definition of anything. And so why should natural be any different? There's another thing to say. Well, there's at least two more things to say. One is that, in a way, the way that we think about the natural has an origin in our history when, at least in the West, Christian thinkers thought of the natural world as kind of part, but not all of the domain that God made, that God created. So in the beginning, we're thinking there's just God, and God makes perhaps some other domains with other creatures in it. There might be angels and so on that are actually part of the natural universe. But he makes the natural universe. And the way that naturalists think about it is that's all there is. That's the one bit, the natural universe. And if the theists don't know what you mean by the natural universe, then their own picture has just become incoherent, right? They've got no explanation of something that's central to their views. So it doesn't seem to me like there genuinely is a particularly pressing issue here. Everybody knows what we mean, more or less, by the natural universe.
Right.
On both sides of the debate.
It strikes me